As your collision repair business grows, you may find yourself doing more advertising and marketing. The more marketing you do, the more likely it is that you need to work with other firms to create marketing pieces, whether it's for your website, your magazine, or a magazine ad, newspaper ads, billboards, or signage. Being able to provide those vendors with a brand style guide will ensure that all of your marketing looks consistent and professional, and makes it easier for other partners to work with your shop to get you the results you need. But what is a brand style guide? Well, it's just a rule book that defines the details of your body shop's brand, including your logo, color schemes, typeface usage, image and photography styles, the personality of your business, and more. Now, branding is way more than just your logo. You might immediately think of your logo as your brand, and while that's certainly a major component of it, there are many other elements to consider. Let's look at what you might want to include in your shop's branding guide. For your average independent body shop, this is probably not necessary, but for a multi-location business, it may be helpful to explain your company history, founders, where the name came from, and if it's a family name or there's any chance of mispronouncing it, clearly define how it should be pronounced. Color is an important part of branding. You should choose primary and secondary colors that are used consistently across all of your marketing. If you haven't yet picked an official color palette for your business, it's not too late. Color is a complex topic, and volumes have been written about color theory and color psychology, but we won't get into that here. What I will note is that when choosing colors for your shop, it's best to put some thought into it. More than simply, I like red and black. Consider your ideal customer and what might appeal to them, but we'll get to that. Typically, when a graphic designer creates a color palette, they'll choose a primary color and at least one secondary color, and sometimes tertiary or accent colors as well. Your chosen colors will be a part of your branding kit, and these will display the color codes in a few different formats: Pantone, CMYK, RGB, and hex. For any materials that will be printed using very specific mixed inks, designers often use the Pantone matching system, or PMS. This is similar to like an AccuShade variants swatch book, but is used for ink on paper instead of paint on metal. Colors will be listed as PMS 286, for example, to specify an ink color. Now, for standard color printing, colors are listed using their CMYK values. That's cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, so that colors are printed using these 4 standard ink colors. They don't come out quite as bold as mixed inks, but are less expensive to print in many cases where full color graphics are needed. Now, for anything that appears on a screen, whether it's a computer monitor, a tablet, a mobile device, colors are usually listed in their RGB values, that's red, green, blue, or 6-digit hex codes. Creating an aesthetically pleasing color palette is a great start to making all your marketing consistent and recognizable. Chances are you already have a logo design, and maybe it's great, perhaps it's dated or amateurish, but at any rate, you need more than one version to make the best use of your various marketing options. For instance, you have your primary version that's used in most cases, probably on a white or light colored background. You may have a variation for use on dark backgrounds, and maybe another that's plain black and another that's plain white. You might even have a single color version using a color from your palette. Your primary logo might be rectangular overall, but for social media profiles, you probably need a square version. Another version of your shop logo may include a tagline, or maybe at smaller sizes you need a version that is more of an icon or your company's initials. There can potentially be several variations of your logo, and your brand guide should outline when and where to use these. Usage will depend on where the logo is being used. If it's your own website, then your full color logo gets used. If it's on stationery or a pen and prints with a single color of ink, you might use the black one. If it's a watermark over a YouTube video, for example, you might choose the white version. Along with your logo variations, you need to include information about sizing, in particular the minimum size and proper proportions. If you've seen a well-known company's logo used incorrectly, whether it's too small to read or it's squished or at an angle, it tends to be noticeable. Additionally, spacing is important when it comes to logo usage. If you're sponsoring an event, you don't want to see your logo crammed up against someone else's with no space between. Your logo designer should factor in spacing around the logo, detailing the minimum amount required. You may want to show examples of how not to use your shop's logo. For instance, you might not want it to appear on a textured background or a photo, but instead it should be set in a box with a certain color from your official color palette. And lastly, you need to be able to provide copies of your logo to anyone who might need it to create marketing materials for you. This could be a sign for the Little League field, a magazine ad, a radio station website, or even a vehicle wrap. You're probably familiar with GIF and JPEG image files, but these formats are typically only good for use on the web. If you try to scale it up to fit a sign, it will look extremely grainy or pixelated. For use in print or signage, you'll need your logo in a vector format. That will let you scale the logo to any size without losing quality. This includes EPS, AI, and some PDF files, among others. For use on websites, GIF and JPEG can work, but the preferred format for a logo is usually PNG or SVG. This might sound like gibberish to you, but any designer can handle these formats easily. So most major brands have one or more official typefaces or fonts. Some even have custom fonts commissioned specifically for their brand. Now, while that's not going to be necessary for you for the average business, I recommend that you choose at least one font, ideally from a font family. And a family contains variations of the typeface like thin, regular, semi-bold, bold, extra bold, and italic. If an official font wasn't selected when your logo was created, you'll want one that pairs with it well. Then, this font gets used for every ad, billboard, your website, business cards, invoices, signage, and anywhere else you can think of. The more advertising you do, the more important it is to consistently use your chosen typefaces as it becomes a recognizable component of your brand. If you do any advertising, there's a good chance you use photos or illustrations. Just like with your typography, it pays to have some consistency with the images you use. That doesn't mean you should use the same images over and over. Instead, decide if you primarily want to use photos or illustrations, and then find a style that you like and stick with it. For example, if one of your ads uses clip art and another has a photo, it's not consistent. Ideally, you'll find an illustrator. Either your designer or marketing partner can handle this, or you can use stock illustrations from the same source or the same artist. The same thing applies to any photos you use. Is there something about them you can standardize to make them fit your brand? This might be that you always use people who are looking directly at the camera, or it may be that all photos have a certain color tint, like they're bluish or black and white. Maybe you always show cars cut out on a white background. You may decide you like to use icons on all your marketing materials. The same thing applies here. Make sure the icons come from an icon family so they don't look random or haphazard. The options are endless, so you have the opportunity to make imagery part of your brand, and a good graphic designer can be invaluable to solidifying your shop's brand image. You have an individual personality, and there's a good chance that it carries over to the way you interact with your customers. You can and should identify the components of your brand's personality as well. This defines the tone of voice that should be used in your marketing. For example, should your marketing come across as personal and friendly or corporate and professional? Do you want to portray modern and high-tech or classic and traditional? Cutting edge or established? Fun or serious? Accessible to all or upscale? Detailing this will ensure that anyone creating marketing for your facility, whether it's an employee or an outsourced firm, they'll know what personality to use. Otherwise, you're leaving this to chance, which can waste your time and the time of the people with whom you're working. Defining a target audience for a collision repair shop can be tricky, but it's still important. You might say that your shop will help anyone who has been in a collision and needs a repair. Now that may be true, but who is your ideal customer? Who's your average customer? They may be one and the same, or they could be at opposite ends of the spectrum. If you could have hundreds of a certain type of client, who would they be? Is it Honda owners, Ford owners needing aluminum repairs? Is it luxury brands only? Perhaps it's not based on a type of vehicle or certification you have. Instead, it could be based on demographics of your area. That could mean you're in a heavily Hispanic or Black community, or it could mean that you have an older population or blue collar or white collar. The point here is that you should define who you most want to focus on and create marketing pieces that reflect that. This sets you apart from your competition. If you serve a predominantly Hispanic population, then your marketing should include Hispanics in any photos you use, and you should strongly consider creating a version of your site in Spanish. If you want to target women, then use women in your ads. If you want to target high-end customers, show off your Porsche or BMW certifications and be sure to use photos that feature those makes. This doesn't mean you can't help people outside of your target audience. It's just that you're trying to attract a certain clientele and make them feel like they found a good match for their repair. You might be thinking that none of this applies to you, but I'd argue that every shop that plans to stick around needs to define all of this. Branding builds trust with your customers. It makes you and your facility appear credible and professional. If you see a Coca-Cola logo and it's blue or green or some other color, it feels off. If you see the Apple logo and it has 2 bites out of it instead of 1, something feels wrong even if you don't immediately know what. Consistency matters, and we have an unconscious appreciation for companies that have a professional image. If you hire someone to do a service and they handwrite your invoice on a generic pad from Staples or Office Max, do they appear professional or do they seem like a mom and pop? On the other hand, if the invoice is printed in color with line items and a company logo and contact info, that gives a different impression. And to be clear, I love mom and pop operations, but they do have a different vibe. So what's the future of your body shop? Are you going to remain independent and compete with the consolidators? If so, you need to have an image that portrays you as a serious option. Are you going to sell to a consolidator at some point? Having all this mapped out strengthens your position and shows that you are a sophisticated seller, one who has systems in place that don't require you to personally make every decision. Your brand style guide can help with all of this, assuming you actually use and follow it after it's created. Now, once you have your style guide created, you need to use it with your advertising partners and vendors. Let's say you've decided to create a billboard. The vendor is going to need your logo at a minimum if they're going to create the artwork for you, so sending your guide to them makes sense. You may simply choose to keep your files in a folder on your computer so you can easily send them to the vendor. In this case, just send them as email attachments. Better yet, though, have your website developer create a private section or page on your website where you can post your brand guide and logos to be downloaded. You can even set a password on this area to keep out search engines and the general public. In that case, you'd email your vendor a link to that hidden page where they can grab the guide and the logos. Okay, your guide will most likely be created as a PDF. Depending on how detailed it is, it could be single page or 20 pages, but 4 to 5 pages is fairly common. As I mentioned before, your logos will need to be included in several sizes and color variations, and each of those needs to be available in a variety of file formats, like EPS, PDF, PNG, and so on. It's easiest to manage this on a web page where you have all the options posted and your marketing or ad vendor can just choose whichever one they prefer. While at first glance, this may seem like it doesn't apply to body shops, it's a valuable exercise for any shop that plans on growing and sticking around. Even if you don't feel a need, you may find that one or more of your competitors starts getting serious about marketing. When that happens, having your brand style guide created will save you time and effort so you can fight back strategically rather than just running a few ads at random and hoping customers choose your shop instead of the one with a rock-solid brand. Hey, I'm Jason Ferguson, and I want to help you market your auto body or collision repair business. If you like what you see here, please subscribe to be notified when new videos are released. You can find out more about digital marketing services from Conspicuous Digital. Thanks for watching. Now get out and fix some cars.